In a gleaming skyscraper high above the city, a powerful female CEO stood surrounded by executives, her sharp laugh echoing through the boardroom. Before her sat a car engine, broken and complex, brought in as a challenge no one dared to solve. Then in walked a man in grease-stained coveralls, a black mechanic, out of place among the polished suits and glass walls. With mocking eyes, the CEO pointed to the machine and sneered, "Fix this engine and I'll marry you." The room erupted with laughter. But what happened next silenced them all. The CEO, Victoria Blake, had built her empire on ruthless ambition. Known for her intelligence and cold demeanor, she ran one of the largest automotive companies in the world. Yet despite her brilliance, she carried an arrogance that often masked prejudice. To her, appearances mattered more than substance. That morning, her team had gathered for an investor presentation showcasing the company's latest high-performance engine. But when the prototype suddenly malfunctioned, panic swept through the room. The multi-million-dollar deal hinged on proving the machine worked. Engineers scrambled, executives whispered excuses, but no one could bring it back to life. Then came Marcus, the building's maintenance worker, a man often overlooked, dressed in a simple mechanic's uniform. He hadn't been invited, but hearing the commotion, he stepped inside. His presence drew uneasy glances. Suits shifted uncomfortably, their eyes silently questioning why a mechanic belonged in their pristine boardroom. Victoria smirked, seizing the chance to humiliate him. "Well," she said with theatrical sarcasm, "since our so-called experts can't do it, maybe the janitor can save us. Fix this engine and I'll marry you." Her words weren't just a joke. They were a statement, dripping with condescension. The executives laughed, reinforcing her cruelty. But Marcus didn't flinch. He simply walked toward the machine, his eyes steady, his hands calm. For him, this wasn't about proving himself to her. It was about showing the truth. Brilliance can come from anywhere, and respect must be earned, not granted by privilege. Marcus bent over the engine, ignoring the smirks around him. He knew this model, not from textbooks or boardroom discussions, but from years of real work. His father had been a mechanic too, teaching him not just how to fix machines, but how to listen to them, how to understand their rhythm like a heartbeat. The executives whispered as he worked. Some mocked him openly. "This is ridiculous," one muttered. "He'll only make it worse." Others crossed their arms, amused, waiting for his failure. Every glance reminded Marcus of the countless times he'd been underestimated, dismissed, or judged by the color of his skin. He picked up a small tool, carefully tightening a loose valve. Then he adjusted the wiring, tracing the system with precise fingers. Within minutes, the laughter began to fade. His movements weren't clumsy guesses. They were deliberate, confident, almost surgical. Victoria watched, her smirk fading into curiosity. She hadn't expected him to even understand the complexity of the engine, let alone navigate it with such skill. But pride kept her silent. She refused to show weakness in front of her team. Marcus wiped his hands on his apron and leaned in again. His mind replayed every lesson from his father, every challenge he had faced working in small garages where customers doubted his ability until he proved them wrong. He wasn't just fixing an engine. He was dismantling prejudice, bolt by bolt. The tension grew unbearable. The investors leaned forward, whispering among themselves. What if he succeeded? What would it mean if the man they mocked, the one they dismissed, accomplished what their highest-paid engineers could not? And then, with a sudden roar, the machine came alive. The engine purred, steady and powerful, filling the room with its mechanical heartbeat. Papers rustled from the vibrations, and gasps filled the air. Marcus stepped back, his face calm, as though he had simply done his job. But the silence around him screamed louder than applause. For the first time, the boardroom's power shifted. Not to Victoria, not to the investors, but to the man they had tried to humiliate. The room froze. The very people who had laughed now stood stunned, their faces pale with disbelief. The impossible had happened. The mechanic they scorned had outperformed the company's brightest engineers. Victoria's hand trembled slightly as she gripped the table. She had meant her words as a cruel joke, never expecting to be held to them. Now all eyes were on her. The investors, once restless, now whispered urgently, impressed by Marcus's mastery. They didn't see a janitor. They saw a man who had just saved millions in potential losses. One executive cleared his throat. "That was extraordinary." Another nodded, murmuring, "He knew exactly what to do." The humiliation shifted from Marcus to Victoria. Her arrogance had backfired. For Marcus, this was more than fixing an engine. It was vindication, proof that skill and intelligence aren't defined by appearance, title, or wealth. He looked at her calmly, saying nothing, but his silence was louder than any boast. Victoria tried to laugh it off, but the sound rang hollow. The investors were no longer amused. They were impressed, not with her leadership, but with the man she had mocked. The irony was brutal. She had turned her boardroom into a stage for ridicule, but Marcus had turned it into his victory. When the meeting ended, the investors left buzzing with excitement about the engine's success. Several shook Marcus's hand, thanking him sincerely. In that moment, he wasn't just a mechanic. He was the man who had saved the company's reputation. Victoria avoided his eyes, her authority fractured. She had built her career on commanding respect through power, but today, respect shifted to someone she once saw as beneath her. The promise she had made, "Fix this engine and I'll marry you," hung heavy in the air, a reminder of her arrogance. No one expected her to honor it, but everyone knew the truth. Her words had exposed her prejudice more than Marcus's skills ever could. Marcus didn't need recognition, nor did he seek revenge. He walked out of the boardroom with quiet dignity, leaving them all to wrestle with what they had witnessed. His lesson was simple yet profound. Greatness isn't bound by status, and respect must be earned, not demanded. For days, the story spread through the company, whispered conversations about the mechanic who humbled the CEO. To some, it was gossip. To others, it was inspiration. But to Marcus, it was just another day of doing what he did best, solving problems no one else could. And so the boardroom incident became a silent legacy. Not about marriage, not about wealth, but about truth. That character shines brightest when arrogance tries to overshadow it. Takeaway: the world is quick to judge. But true respect doesn't come from mocking others. It comes from recognizing the brilliance we too often overlook. So ask yourself, how many times have you dismissed someone's worth before they had a chance to show it?